Complaining. For many, it comes as natural as breathing. We inhale the realities of the world, and then we exhale a steady stream of negativity in response. It seems innocent enough. Complaining is just keeping it real. In reality, complaining is the new smoking. And the impact of complaining on every area of our life is just as damaging. We've all heard about the negative effects of breathing in somebody else's secondary smoke. Complaining works the same exact way. It doesn't just impact the complainer. The negative effects of complaining impacts everyone who listens, and not for the better. In our time today, we're going to tackle complaining head on as we're joined by the New York Times bestselling author Jon Gordon to discuss his book, The No Complaining Rule. Each of us is on our journey to become our personal and professional best. Complaining is like driving on that journey with the emergency brake on. It slows you down and does lasting damage. Instead of doing that, we're going to fill our tanks with high-test fuel of gratitude and merge onto the fast lane to destination best. It's time for the no complaining rule. Jon Gordon, welcome back to Personal and Professional Best.
Pat, great to be with you.
Jon, so we kicked off 2022 as an organization with a theme, building a championship season at home, in the workplace, everywhere, with everyone. In January, we invited Dr. Kevin Elko to join us. He's won 31 championship rings, knows a thing or two about champion and championships. And he helped us all focus on setting goals for the year so we could indeed know what championship in our lives would look like. In February, we invited Charles Duhigg, the Power of Habits, to come and join us so that we could evaluate the habits that we were in and figure out which ones to keep and which ones to lose. That brings us to today. We invited you to discuss complaining, or actually not complaining. After all, you wrote the book called The No Complaining Rule. So Jon, first question for you. What motivated you to write the book?
I met a company called PPR, and I know the CEO, Dwight Cooper, and they had a no complaining rule. And this was a rule that they implemented where they said, you're not allowed to complain unless you come with a solution. So every employee was basically taught this rule. When new hires were hired, they said, we have this no complaining rule. So if you're a complainer, it's probably not a great place for you to work. So don't come here. They found that they hired really great people, and the people who were on board and really implemented this rule, they were more productive, and it transformed their company. They were voted one of the best places to work almost every year by SHRM and the Best Places to Work Institute. They outperformed their competition. 10 times the growth in a commoditized market. They're a nurse staffing company, and they were just crushing it because of this culture that they created because of the no complaining rule. So I heard about this rule, decided to write a fable based on the rule. I saw that complaining was such a big problem in organizations and teams and sports teams and personal lives. So I wanted to share this rule and this concept to help us move us forward. Instead of complaining about where you are, focus on where you want to be and help organizations and teams that allow complaining to sabotage them and their performance from not doing it anymore. So it was really inspired by that. It was the book I wrote right after the Energy Bus. So Energy Bus for me was very general, these core principles. And then No Complaining Rule was about getting granular and about talking about how do we turn negativity into positive results.
You know, I love what you do because you inspire mankind. And you do it with the simplest things, but simple is often brilliant. You know, it's interesting you were talking about that company. On the back of our wall here in our main facility in Alpharetta, Georgia, we have a 30-foot sign that says, complacency is the enemy of best, but complaining is the arch enemy of best. So we, like that company, 5 out of the last 6 years. In fact, last night, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, for the third consecutive year, recognized us as the #1 employer in Atlanta. So I think we, that other company, we have an awful lot in common. And it leads us to that next place, which is the very best in life. When people become their best, they do certain things and they don't do certain things. And what I found is that there's an awful lot of people that complain about what's not going right in life and people in their life. And then the folks that are actually doing the best things in life, you just don't hear them do an awful lot of complaining. You know, complaining, it causes our brains to shrink, right? This is what science tells us. From a health standpoint, high cholesterol, heart disease, obesity, all of these things are consequences of complaining. Why do people do it?
Two main reasons. It's like an adult form of crying. When you were a baby and you wanted something or you didn't get what you wanted, what did you do? You cried. And so you learn that crying is a great way to get a response from someone. Think about it. You meet people and what do? A lot of times people will start the conversation by complaining, and it's a way to get the conversation started to talk about what's wrong in your life. I come from a Jewish Italian family, and I say it's a long line of complainers, right? My ancestors wandered around the desert complaining for 40 years, right? We have a lot of practice at it. It's become a habit. And I used to be a professional complainer, so I know this well. And as you said, it puts you into victim mode, right? It makes you feel powerless. Complaining is like throwing up. Afterwards, you feel better, but then everyone around you feels sick. And so it may release something that you're holding on to. That's the other thing why we complain. Besides crying, it becomes a habit. So you get so used to doing it, you now do it as a habit, and you don't even realize that you're doing it anymore. My wife woke me up to the fact that I was a big complainer, and she made me change my paradigm, my mindset. And when I stopped complaining and I stopped blaming her and others for why my life was so bad, I then took ownership. It's why in the energy bus, the first rule is you are the driver of your bus. You decide the kind of ride it's going to be. And so are you going to focus on the positive or the negative? Are you going to be a victim in this story, or will you be a hero? Is your life a drama or a horror story, or is it an inspirational tale? And we got to remember, it's an inspirational tale. And the key is to stop complaining. It causes you to focus on where you are instead of where you want to be. It's like sludge in your energy pipeline that holds you back and keeps you stuck. But as we know, solutions, faith, optimism, belief, that's what moves us forward. So yeah, we've got to stop that complaining. Again, it's like crying as an adult form of crying, and it becomes a habit.
I don't think I will ever experience complaining the same way again. I will see this person complaining and a baby face that's crying. Maybe I'll get some pacifiers to carry around with me just to help. You know, the other thing, we talked about the idea of negative consequences for an individual that is a complainer in terms of what it does to their own brain and what it does to their health, but it also is like smoking. It affects others. So when you were talking about getting sick, even though that person feels better, others don't necessarily feel better because of what just happened. The same with complaining. We leave other people in our life who we supposedly care about in a lesser place, not a better place, but in a lesser place as a result of what we're doing. Is there a difference between a complaint and complaining?
A complaint and complaining. Well, here's the thing. There are times that a complaint is necessary. I'm not saying we eliminate all complaints or even complaining, because there are times where we have to solve something. There are things that we should complain about. And you do have to complain in order to create the solution, but you don't want to focus on the complaint. You want to use that complaint as a catalyst for growth, for improvement, for progress. So I would say complaining is where you're venting. It's where it's toxic, where it's mindless complaining, where you're just doing it to do it, and you're not really interested or concerned or even considering a solution, right? You just want to complain to try to make yourself feel better, and you want to just cry and vent it out. But the complaint where you say, okay, I have this complaint that needs to be addressed, that's actually something that is a good thing. And if you think about it, Pat, every invention we've ever created, has been the result of a complaint. Like, there's got to be a better way of doing this. So let's invent this. Let's create this. So I always say it's the complaining that actually leads to growth. We just don't want to focus on the complaints. We want to focus on the solutions.
Of course, all of us are immersed in the story of not only our individual lives at home and in the workplace, but we're immersed in the story of what's going on around us in our country these days, right? And so in the last couple of years, we went through an awful lot of, let's just say, divide in America. And then we had COVID, which was, offered both of those things, an awful lot to complain about. And now there is Ukraine. But when I think about all of those things, I always start the same place every day. I won the lottery. I live in the best country in the world. We can complain about what it's not, or we can love it for all the things that it is. And then we can work every single day to try to make it a little bit better. It feels a little bit like we're so blessed, so richly blessed, that we shouldn't be complaining in our country. That doesn't mean there's not things, people, and things that are can be made better in life. But that's a difference. And I think that's what you're saying, is that there's things to complain about, but we need to be doing something about those as opposed to just complaining about them. Is that the right way to think about it?
Totally. You can both love your country and admit that there's flaws that need to be addressed. And it doesn't mean you don't love your country if you want to improve upon the flaws, but you have to appreciate what you love about America. Like, I love that America is a beacon of light. It is the land of freedom. It is our core idea and value. And if we get away from freedom, which at times I believe we have in this country, throughout our history, whenever we get away from that, it's when we lose our country and we lose our greatness. When we live our ideals, when we live our core values, we become the greatest country and the greatest place on earth. So to me, it's about making sure we're living those values. And yes, appreciating what we have, and yet looking for ways to improve to get even better. But you don't have to condemn it. You don't have to there's too many people today that are just bashing America and want to wreak havoc on America, and they think it needs to be revamped and it changed completely. No, it just needs to be improved. Yep. It just needs to be tweaked a little bit to get better and better along the way. And once you stick to your fundamentals of your core purpose as an organization, that's when you grow. When you invest in the root, you get great fruit. And in our country, if we continue to invest in the root of who we are, right? Our spirit, our love, our God-centered faith, right? That makes this country unique. Again, whatever religion you have, the ability to be able to worship in freedom and the expression of freedom of speech, right? Freedom to assemble, to even complain about the way things are if you don't like them, while proposing solutions along the way. Don't just complain. How can we make our country better, right? That's the core part of who we are. So yes, I think we're very aligned in how we view the world and how we view how our country can continue to get better and how we can love it even more.
Seems to me the more thankful a individual is, the less likely they are to complain. Because if you can make a list every single day, start with freedom. I mean, people in our country have literally died for the opportunity to be free. And it's happening around the world again right now. It's happening in Ukraine. People are willing to give up their lives for the opportunity to be free. Yet we have that as a nation. We have that freedom, fundamental freedom, more so than any other nation on earth. If you can start with the things that you're thankful for every single day, you run out of opportunity to find things to complain about because you live from a place of gratitude. And I find when I run into people that are chronic, if you will, in their complaining, oftentimes they have so many blessings in their life, they just don't think about those blessings. They focus on what's not right as opposed to what's right.
So true. And that's why I started taking a thank you walk years ago when I realized I was a professional complainer. My wife gave me that ultimatum: change or you're off the bus and our relationship and our marriage is over. She had enough of my negativity, and I deserved it. Like, she had enough, and I was blaming and complaining. I started taking a walk of gratitude every day, and I would just say what I was thankful for. And that one practice changed my life. It rewired my brain from negative to positive. You get up in the morning, you practice gratitude, you flood your brain and body flood with your brain and body with positive emotions that uplift you, rather than those stress hormones that come from complaining that drain you and over time slowly kill you. So doing this day in and day out changes your mind, changes your heart, your soul, your perspective, and how you view the world. And when you do this, you create a fertile mind that is ready for great things to happen. Whereas complaining, as you said earlier, it restricts your mind. It creates a narrow lens in which you view the world. But the positive mind looks for possibilities, looks for hope, and it believes in a brighter and better future. So this is like not just good for business and for your life. It's good for your heart and your soul and your longevity too.
So if you're parents out there today, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories because I do think you have the opportunity to shape the way your children grow up in terms of complaining. So John, when me and my brothers were young, we're at the beach, and I was probably 5. My brothers were a couple of years older than me, and I'm not going to say which brother, but my dad threw one of my brothers a pass, a football on the beach. My brother dropped it, and he said to my dad, "The football's sandy." And it became, for the last 40 years, literally in our family, a joke we make anytime someone complains or makes an excuse about not getting something done. My dad's response was really simple: catch it anyway. And it was a simple way to answer a question about the football being sandy. We also went through another significant, much more significant event with people, and that was that we had a little brother who passed away, and then my mom left us because she could not deal with the pain. And my dad came home and said, "Forgive your mom, and don't worry, I'll take care of everything." And he served us. And the word serve is the single biggest thing that we use here in our organization to drive us to the place we all want to go best. And those are the 2 words we use most. And I learned them by watching my father tell my brother not to make excuses, catch the ball best, and then also watched what he did in response to something he could have done differently. He could have complained about his wife, his mom. He could have complained to God about losing his child, but instead he poured into his children something far different. So I think we need to be careful that the people that are around us that we say we love, that we do love, that we're not complaining so much that we give them, well, the disease, which is to grow up complaining because they're going to miss out on something that's exceptional if they do. You mentioned earlier that your ancestors wandered in the desert. We're both men of faith, right? And I know that story very well. They were, of course, enslaved, and they were given the opportunity to have freedom. But the journey in life, their journey, had some, let's just say, obstacles along the way, just like our journeys do in life. And those obstacles led them to grumbling. And is it, in your view, being a man of faith, I am too, is complaining actually really complaining to God as opposed to complaining about other people or circumstances? Isn't it really about complaining back to God?
I think that's a huge part of it. I do believe that when we're complaining, we limit ourselves and we limit God. We're actually putting our faith towards worry, our faith towards what's not possible. We're complaining about the way things are, and we don't believe that God can solve the problem. It actually means we're not trusting in God, and we're not putting our faith in Him during those moments. We're complaining because we feel powerless, and in those moments we complain. What we really should be doing is trusting and putting faith. I think about your dad. That story you told is just so powerful because he could have cursed God. God, why did you do this, to us and to our family? My wife left us and left our kids. And his demonstration of faith, modeling that, changed your family, changed your future, and changed you, Pat. I know you're the leader you are and the impact that you're now having on tens of thousands and millions of people around the world as a result of your dad's example of faith. He didn't curse, right? He accepted what is, and he said, I'm going to control what I can control. I'm going to impact these kids' lives, and I'm going to trust in God in those moments. Your mom's response was very different. Same event. I often say one day you're in traffic and it bothers you. The next day you're in the same traffic and it doesn't. Is the traffic? It's never the traffic. It's never the circumstance. It's always our state of mind, our level of consciousness, and how we respond to the events in our life. And he responded very different. He had a different level of consciousness. She saw the circumstances more powerful than her. Your dad saw his faith and God as greater than the circumstance. And so the Israelites in the desert, think about that. God delivers them from Egypt. They are now free. They're in the wilderness. And what happens? They start complaining. They complain that they're hungry. There's not enough food.
At least we had cucumbers back when we were slaves, right?
Right. Why did you bring us into the desert where we now are starving? At least there we could eat and we had food. Meanwhile, you were enslaved. They would rather be enslaved and not free and have comfort and security than actually stepping out into the wilderness and have to trust in God and have faith. See, that's what God's really about. God was about, and he was so angry at the Israelites during that, he actually even threatened to destroy all of them. So that shows us how God feels about complaining. And that's the Old Testament. The New Testament, Jesus would just love them. But in the Old Testament, God wanted to destroy them. Moses spoke to God on their behalf, saying, no, just give him a chance, give him a chance. And God was so upset because basically they weren't trusting in God. They were trusting in their circumstances and not looking to him with faith. Then he would provide them with manna, provide them with food, right? Over and over again, he would perform a miracle and then they would receive it and they'd be like, oh, all right, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God. And then they would forget again. They would forget about all the miracles that he did and they would start to complain. And that's what happens to us as well. Like we have these amazing miracles that happen in our lives. And so often we forget those miracles. When we're dealt with difficult situations and circumstances, a lot of times we forget what God did for us in the past. And I'm often reminded, and I remind myself during scary moments, fearful moments like COVID when it hit, I reminded myself during that time, God carried you through the most difficult times in your life, when you were almost bankrupt, when you had nothing, when your wife almost left you, when you didn't know how you're going to pay the bills. You saw God carry you. And guess what? He will carry you during this time as well. So I complained, I want to admit, I want to be very transparent. I complained like the first week of COVID about when everything was shut down. What are we going to do? How are we going to move forward? My wife once again said, hey, where's that positive guy who wrote all these positive books? I'm like, you're right. I stepped in faith. I said, all right, God, you did it once. I'm going to trust in you again, and I'm going to trust in you. And man, my faith grew so much during the last few years because I saw how that faith was rewarded. I saw how it carried me. And I know many examples of the companies I work with, and just like you, where so many great faithful leaders thrived during this time and had a lot of success as a result of that. So truly a choice. Are we going to turn to God and have faith in him, or are we going to complain about our circumstances? So I think you're right. Ultimately, it comes to what's your relationship with God, and that determines how you then respond to your circumstances and how you treat others in the process.
Yeah, it's still our choice. You know, it's interesting. Every single human being, adult, when I asked him, do you want to be your personal and professional best? Resoundingly, the answer is yes. And this today is a great topic because when you talk to someone about complaining and the negative impact to their brain, their health, the people around them, they say, yeah, but if you only knew my story, right? But we all have a story and we all have things, people, and circumstances. And what I try to encourage people, John, is that on the topic of complaining, if there's someone in your life that you feel like complaining about, don't tell someone else. Talk directly to that person and give them feedback with grace and with love, because you can leave them a better human being by doing that. And then on circumstances, if you don't like the circumstances, what I always think is God designed them perfectly so that I would get better as a result of whatever it is adversity-wise that I have to deal with. So instead of complaining, invest in people, invest in circumstances, and best lives on the other side. It's just like this road we have to travel to get through it. And I know your background and your story, and you have this amazing story of, kind of ashes and then to now, be touching mankind all over the planet. When I talk to most of the very best people and climb their mountain in their respective industries, they have relatively simple backgrounds. They just discover the thing we're talking about today. And today's about complaining. They discover that it is as simple as we're describing it. We just have to change the way we think about it. Jon, so if there's someone in the audience today that will get vulnerable enough with themselves where they'll say, okay, I'm a chronic complainer, and I want to stop complaining, what do you recommend they do?
Well, one, that's okay. If you recognize it, that's the great thing, and know that you can change it. We've all been complainers in our lives, and just know that you can make a choice. You can make a change. So one, you could actually give yourself a no complaining challenge where you decide, okay, I'm not going to complain for 21 days, right? We have these no complaining bracelets that we share, and you wear a bracelet on, say, your right hand. And anytime you complain, all right, you have to switch it over to your left hand. And then the next day you have to start over. So you got to do 21 days straight. Then the next day you put it back on your right hand and you go at it again. And the goal is 21 days without complaining. Give it a shot. Do it with a friend. Do it with your family. Have fun together and say, all right, family, we are a lot of complainers. Let's do it as a family. Great lesson for kids. I remember I used to say to my kids, we're not whiners, we're winners.
I love it.
We're not whiners, we're winners. And it's so funny. My friend tried this with his kids. His daughter said, no, Dad, we're whiners. so they had some more work to do, but I used to say it all the time. We're not whiners, we're winners. So 21 days, try that. Then you can also implement 3 no complaining tools. These are tools to help you not complain as you're going through the challenge. And one is the but positive technique. You talked about but earlier. They will but and then complain, but here's a but positive. So you might say, oh, it's raining today. I hate the rain. And then just complain about the rain, but add a but. And the but is, but our lawn needed it. But the rain cleanses things. But if we didn't have the rain, we wouldn't have water. Find the positive in the negative. You can do this with anything. My family's driving me crazy right now, but I'm thankful I have my family. I'm thankful that they're healthy. My job is nuts right now, but you know what? I have a job and I'm grateful. So you add that but positive. The other technique, number 2, is to focus on solutions instead of the complaint or the challenge. So every time there's a challenge, ask yourself, what is the opportunity? How can I grow from this? How can I improve because of this? How can I get better? What kind of actions do I want to take? So within every challenge, look at that challenge and decide to turn it into an opportunity or a solution. And then finally, get to instead of have to. Every time you start saying, I have to do this, I have to go to work, I have this meeting. No, I get to do this. Change have to get to. I get to live this life. I get to make a difference while so many don't have this opportunity. I get to drive a car where people in other countries have to walk 20 miles just to get water. I get to live this life where my mom passed away at 59 years old. She doesn't get to live anymore, but I do. And when you do that, you realize every day is a gift, not an obligation. And when you change your have to's to get to's, you change a complaining voice to an appreciative heart. And I'm convinced abundance flows into your life when gratitude flows out of your heart. We already talked about turning complaints into solutions. That's another tip, right? Every complaint asks, what's the solution here? Be a problem solver instead of a problem, right, igniter or a problem reinforcer. Focus on the solution in every complaint that you're dealing with. And these are some tools along the way. And they're in the book, the No Complaining Rule as well. So read the book, get inspired by it, use the tools in the book, and then take yourself through a 21-day challenge and do it with a friend, do it with coworkers, do it with your family. It's a great way to actually change your mindset, change your perspective. And I guarantee after you do it for 21 days, it's like a cleanse. You're different afterwards. You will feel different after this. Your soul will feel different. Your mind will feel different, and you'll realize the power of not complaining and the power of focusing on solutions. And Pat, you're a leader. So let's say this. Let's let people know this. If you're complaining, you're not leading. Leaders don't focus on the complaints. They focus on the solutions. And yes, they may complain. Like we can complain about what's going on right now in our country and some of the policies being implemented, and that's okay. But don't just complain the whole time. Offer solutions and a way and a path forward, because I think we know some great solutions that could actually rectify a lot of this. You had one that you told me, off camera, of what we can do, right? There's things we can do along the way that will make us better as a country. So offer solutions, but as a leader, just know if you're complaining all the time, you're not leading. Leaders create the future, and they do so by focusing on solutions.
And they bring everybody with them. And Jon, thank you so much. You're an amazing human being and an inspiration to me. And we installed the energy bus. Every single new associate that joins our organization is required to read 2 books, The Energy Bus and Excellence Wins from Horst Schulze. There's going to be a third, and it's going to be the no complaining rule that we're going to add, because I do think that it would enrich every single person who reads the book, who takes on new behaviors, and it'll enrich all of the people's lives that are in their life, which is what our mission here as an organization, which is to leave everybody better by serving others. Jon, thank you so much for your time today, and thanks for all that you do to change the lives of others.
Hey, thanks, Pat. Thanks for your lesson. Thanks for your example. And I never knew this about your dad and your family, so I'm just really inspired by that and that story. And what a great example that the world can learn from. What an amazing man.
God bless you, brother.
God bless.
The Oxford Dictionary defines complacency as a feeling of smug or uncritical satisfaction with oneself or one's achievements. Complacency is hoping and expecting today to be better than yesterday, but doing nothing yesterday to ensure it. It's like living life on cruise control. Complacency is the enemy of best. As bad as complacency is, most of us, we take it one step farther by engaging in the toxic practice of complaining. We're all on a journey to destination best. If complacency is simply cruising, complaining is like trying to drive your vehicle with the emergency brake fully engaged. It slows you down and does lasting damage. Complaining is the archenemy of best. You see, in everything in life, there's what's natural, and then there's what's best. Naturally, no matter the circumstances in life, we complain. We complain about people, and we complain about circumstances. It's the natural thing to do. In fact, Americans complain on average 15 to 30 times a day. Instead, you should focus on all that's in your life that you should be thankful for, both the people that are in your life and the circumstances. Who are the people, past and present, in your life that have invested in you and have made your life better? Maybe it was a parent or teacher or coach or a manager or spouse, your children. They've invested and made your life better. What are the circumstances, past and present, that have made your life better? Your freedom as an American, your good health, these are blessings of prosperity that we should all enjoy. Thankfulness, gratitude, and investing wisely will lead you to your personal and professional best. Like filling your tank with high-test fuel, your engine will run more efficiently and you'll emit far fewer emissions. Join us next month as we invest time with Molly Fletcher, renowned sports agent and author, as we all learn to become more effective negotiators. Best is waiting. Meet you there.